As we discussed in a previous video, we've narrowly avoided a government shutdown, at least for the next 45 days. But that development spawned another story. Capitol Police are now investigating a Democratic congressman who pulled a fire alarm as Congress was deliberating that government funding legislation. And bad faith, shameless Republicans are putting their hypocrisy on full display, with the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene and George Santos calling for that Democrat to be investigated, indicted, and expelled. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, so here's the situation. Congressman Jamal Bowman of New York, somebody that we've discussed in a few videos in the past, somebody whose energy I like. He's an excellent debater. He's a passionate rhetorician. He brings a fierce advocacy and energy to his position. He stood toe-to-toe with Marjorie Taylor Greene on the steps of the Capitol building and cheerfully and in good nature, bantered with her and argued back with her. Just love that energy. Now, he's under investigation because he has pulled a fire alarm. He pulled a fire alarm as the House of Representatives was deliberating this continuing resolution legislation, which funded the government for the next 45 days. And he's being investigated by Capitol Police. So we don't have the video footage, but at least stills, like still images of the footage have been released. But I'm going to read Congressman Bowman's statement, his official statement, and then we're going to unpack it all together. So he says, I want to personally clear up confusion surrounding today's events. Today, as I was rushing to make a vote, I came to a door that's usually open for votes, but today would not open. I'm embarrassed to admit that I activated the fire alarm, mistakenly thinking it would open the door. I regret this and sincerely apologize for any confusion this caused. But I want to be very clear. This was not me in any way trying to delay any vote. It was the exact opposite. I was trying urgently to get to a vote, which I ultimately did, and join my colleagues in a bipartisan effort to keep our government open. I also met after the vote with the Sergeant-at-Arms and Capitol Police at their request and explained what had happened. My hope is that no one will make more of this than what it was. I'm working very hard every day, including today, to do my job, to do it well, and deliver for my constituents. Now, of course, that plea there at the very end, which is I hope no one will make more of this than what it is, of course that's not true. You have Republicans looking into this. So here's the situation. This is a still image of Congressman Bowman pulling the fire alarm to try to get these doors right here open. Okay, why did he do that? Well, if you look, there are some signs at the door, and one of them says, emergency exit only. Push until alarm sounds 3 seconds. Door will unlock in 30 seconds. So listen, as silly, as goofy, as thoughtless as this may be, I can easily understand how a person trying to urgently make it to a vote using a door that is usually open to them, available to them, to vote for the bill. He wasn't trying to kill the bill. He wasn't trying to vote against the bill. He voted affirmatively for the bill, and he was trying to get there to make that happen so the government would keep functioning. I could see in the heat of the moment, panicking that you're running late, seeing the sign saying, okay, activate alarm, the door will open, and just no critical thinking, just pulling the alarm. Now, to be clear, I also believe that Congressman Bowman should be investigated for this. Capitol Police should be looking into this to see if there was anything, any sort of like actual impropriety, or if this was just like a brainless moment from an otherwise distinguished congressman. But he is being investigated. He should be investigated. But what's interesting to me is that even though that's happening, that's insufficient for the Republican Party. So Marjorie Taylor Greene and George Santos have some things to say about this. I want to play a clip here from MTG herself.
No, I want to talk about Jamal Bowman pulling the fire alarm. Capitol Police are questioning him right now because it's on video. That he violated the exact same law that January 6th defendants are being prosecuted for every single day. He violated the exact same law, interrupting an official proceeding, and by pulling a fire alarm. It's on video, and the Capitol Police have the information.
Did you see?
This is outrageous. They have it on video.
Have you seen the video?
I haven't seen the video yet, but I'm going to be demanding it. I'm demanding that the Department of Justice prosecute him the same way they prosecuted January 6th defendants.
Right, so of course she's using it to make a big deal about the January 6th defendants because she loves her insurrectionists. Now, Again, it seems much more straightforward that January 6th insurrectionists, knowingly intended to disrupt the certification of President-elect Biden's victory, right? That's intuitively true. We have statements to that effect. It doesn't make nearly as much sense that Congressman Bowman would want to try to delay a vote about funding the government. He did support funding the government. He did vote in affirmative for that bill. That he would want to delay a bill that he voted for from occurring to keep the government funded. Like, that's less intuitive, right? But I agree, he should be investigated. And if it turns out that the results of that investigation is that he had some sort of nefarious motive and that he did intend to pull a fire alarm, to delay an official, congressional action, then of course he should be treated. He should be held to the same standard as anybody else. So if the evidence is there, so be it. I just don't think it makes nearly as much sense. But beyond that, we also have George Santos weighing in on the matter.
The reality is, one person was responsible for this. One person mobilized the United States Capitol Police, put committee and congressional staffers in jeopardy of moving about the building, all during a historic vote to not shut down the government took place. And this person is Congressman Jamal Bowman from New York. It's an embarrassment that this colleague of mine thought that committing an act of treason to obstruct a proceeding he did not agree with was appropriate, and he is now trying to play it off as if it were an accident. This is the same standard that the people from January 6th were held with. I want him to be held at the same standard. As a member of this body, I call for immediate consideration for everyone to look serious into his actions, and that he be held at the full extent of the law in the same way that the people who were here on Capitol grounds in January 6th and interfered with official proceeding are being held in the DC jail right now. It's time to face the music, and I want to see if the DOJ is going to show their bias or not. And with that, I leave you all with this. Remember one thing: what's good for the geese is good for the gander. Thank you.
So it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And listen, I agree. I completely agree. As a matter of fact, I want Democrats to take that energy. Now, I would point out that the DOJ has routinely demonstrated a lack of bias against Republicans. They've criminally indicted Hunter Biden, President Biden's civilian son. They have criminally indicted Bob Menendez, a powerful Democratic senator. They're even investigating, in a sweeping way, President Biden himself. A special counsel has been assigned to investigate President Biden for the mishandling of classified documents. And of course, as we've discussed, we've seen routine examples of the DOJ and FBI and the National Archives bending over backwards to accommodate Donald Trump. But of course, this is all performative outrage. And if you have any doubts, I'm going to point you to AOC, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who makes the point very succinctly.
But what they did do, while they did that, what they did not do was to commit to the same when George Santos was actually found guilty after a thorough investigation of 13 federal charges. He's indicted on everything from wire fraud to actual lying of House investigators. And they have been buddying up and giggling with him on the House floor, and they are protecting someone who has lied to the American people, lied to the United States House of Representatives, lied to congressional investigators, but they're filing a motion to expel a member who, in a moment of panic, was trying to escape a vestibule. Give me a break. And so the idea that there is somehow any kind of equivalence to someone who is actively trying to clear up a situation that he himself admits he's embarrassed. He released a statement last night. He apologized. And they are protecting someone who has not only committed wire fraud, not only defrauded veterans, not only lied to congressional investigators, but is openly gloating about it, is absolutely humiliating to the Republican caucus. And I think that they should really check their own values.
Well said, AOC. No, it's absolutely true. Listen, the Republican Party would be nothing if not for its shameless exploitation of double standards. There is no rational moral basis to protect Donald Trump, to protect George Santos, but to ruthlessly hold the Democratic Party, the opposition party, to the highest standards. Okay, the only reason you would do that, of course, is if you're a cynic and just interested in the relentless pursuit of power. So you'll excuse anything done by people on your side, but you'll, overfixate and ruthlessly seek the prosecution and consequences for people on the other side, which is exactly what the GOP is doing. Again, for my money, It absolutely makes sense that Congressman Bowman, regardless of whatever his motivation is, he should be investigated, which he is. Accordingly, based on reporting, he is fully cooperating with Capitol Police. He issued a statement. He apologized. There's a degree of, remorse, okay, for the inconvenience that was caused. If during the course of that investigation it's determined that there's actually evidence that he did, in fact, intend to obstruct the deliberation of Congress, then yes, he should be held to the same standard as January 6 defendants or whatever. I just don't think that that's the case because, again, Bowman wanted to keep the government funding, so it would be counterintuitive for him to pull a fire alarm to delay that process. It would actually be contrary to what his interests are. But again, I suppose I'm open to the possibility that that's not the case, but we'll see what happens after the results of the investigation.